Ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday night. Everybody was thinking about college football, the national championship game, Washington or Michigan, Black Monday in the NFL, which coaches to get fired, what's going on Raw. Well, as I said in my intro to introduce this man a few hours ago, this man is bigger than all of that and some. And to be further, he's more destructive than any of them or any of those programs on their best day for very good reasons. In fact, we're so excited to have had him back here home on Sportswire Radio for his first appearance in over 6 months. We have dedicated all of our platforms today to be dedicated to Jack Delta Day. And our guest here once again returns with a championship that we've spoke quite a bit about over the past few days as we're in the middle of our XCW week on Sportswire Radio, as he holds that XCW New Age Championship as he defeated in Encounters Episode 2, Eric Mason, a man that was on right after he won that New Age Championship. Our guest tonight also has what I will continue to say throughout 2024, the best match of the year, the first match of the year in 2024 for that ROEW Heavyweight Championship against the good guy CJ Black. In fact, it was such not a good match, it was a great match that Cooper Dragon rated it 7 out of 7 stars. Our guest here has pretty much done it all. As I continue to say, he's the Johnny Cash, I've been everywhere man. It's taken him to 8 states, 27 championships, and 23 promotions. But it's taken him most importantly home, where he belongs on Sportswire Radio, to recognize him on this day, January 8th, 2024, forever on all Sportswire Radio platforms to be Jack Delta Day. The destructive Jack Delta, congratulations. As we always say, it's quality over quantity, but now it's time to take your rightful place as what everybody else has gotten and many of your peers in the XCW and ROEW locker rooms have gotten, that introduction that everybody else knows. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the XCW New Age Champion of the World. They call him the Destructive Jack Delta. The champ is here.
Dear God, Tom, I've watched dozens of Sportswire radios, and every single time you do your intro, it's like you take all the energy you have, all the wind in your body, and you just rush it into that introduction. It is fantastic. First of all, thank you for having me on again. I know it's been a long time, but I feel like if I overdo it, it's gonna wear out the all the talking points. Because there are people that could that are either in the live chat or on with you. They're almost a co-host.
Well, what I try to do most, and I actually specifically want to say hello to somebody special in a second, but what I try to do is I let the people go out and speak to you and others directly that come on the show. Because as we've said, we've adopted this hashtag here for 2024. All wrestling matters. And the fact is that Jack Delta, you have been that reason. You have been in promotion after promotion. You have helped many of those companies go out and become bigger and better, and certainly help those promotions talent as well. So what you've done really, I mean, we owe a debt of gratitude to you. In fact, you know what, Jack Delta? I actually want to do this here.
Right off the bat, nice clap. Oh. Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you,
Thank
Jack.
you, referee.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. No, seriously, thank you, Jack Delta. Thank you for what you've done in making sure that all wrestling matters. Thank you for putting your body out there. Thank you for going out there and giving us here what we love in this sport. And just, I want to say it, and I want to continue to say it. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to make this day special. On January the 8th, 2024, on all Sportswire platforms, you're the first person in this platform's history to have their own day dedicated on your behalf because of everything that you've done. So thank you, Jack, for all that you've done for us. No, seriously, thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Oh, that is incredible. A certificate of appreciation. Dude, I'm going to print that out and put that up on my fridge.
I'm glad because Fletch said the same thing. I know. I want to give a big shout out to James Barris, the owner of CCW. This man is the definition of all wrestling matters. And Mr. Barris, don't let the haters, don't let the fakers, don't let the posers, don't let the pervs get to you.
Oh, yeah.
You're here in our house where all wrestling matters. You'll always have a voice. But Jack Delta, I just want to say that, listen, what you do for us, giving us these opportunities to be here, continue to talk about the things that we love, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, because I think all the connections that especially like Sportswire Radio has been taking up this past year has just been incredible, where it's just I feel like I mentioned this on like a comment like a week ago or so on one of your videos, but it was like the amount of companies and the amount of people that you've been able to branch yourself out with and talk with and connect and quite literally like cause actual crossovers to happen because you get these people in connection with each other is just incredible. Well,
that's what it's all about. Listen, because you know this, you've wrestled in 23 promotions, you've held 27 championships, you've wrestled in Michigan, you've wrestled in Indiana, certainly, Tennessee, Ohio. The facts are, I'm going to get to the people in a second. I promise I'm going to get to you. You can say anything you want to Jack Delta in a second. I'll certainly get to you. But the facts are is that that's what it's all about. It shouldn't be this closed-minded narrowness that we see in certain places and certain rival promotions to Mr. Barris, obviously in the UK, and our friends in Colory Community Wrestling. Make sure you rechange that name, Mr. Barris, to Colory Community Wrestling. But the facts are is that that's what it should be. We all should be working together. We all should be going out there to see who's the best person. We should all be going out there to see different people wrestle each other. When we see the same almost factory line, robotic type matches, when we see the same things over and over and over, where it becomes like a rerun of, one of our most boring episodes we watch on sitcom TV or whatever it is, we don't want that. We want to see the best wrestle the best. And if I can do that, great. If not, that's okay too. But that's really what we've wanted to do on sports. Where obviously we've covered the British wrestling for over 3 years, and that's where Mr. Barris has been one of my biggest champions of all time. That's why he's going into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame on January 25th, the day of my 5-year anniversary. I think there's no better person to be inducted on that day. But the facts are is that this is what it's about. At the end of the day, what it's all about is to give people an opportunity to introduce themselves to different people that they may not know in another promotion and maybe become fans of theirs.
Yeah, and another thing too, every time I see, because I'm seeing like a bunch of comments flowing through and stuff. Every time
I'll read them. Don't worry, I'll read them.
Yeah, I'll jump a little bit ahead, kind of not saying who it is, but every time I take one of my breaks, and I go off on one of my expenditures and stuff like that, I doubt my place sometimes. And then I think about how many different places would have never been known or heard about had it not been for me discovering those places and providing those crossover opportunities for people to go there.
Well, you know what? Listen, I'm sure that James Barris and his promotion, I'm sure in Colory Championship Wrestling or Colory Community Wrestling, I'm sure they would love to have you anytime. There's a lot of people. In fact, I didn't even realize this, but we actually have a mutual connection. What a small world wrestling is, because we were speaking about this off the air. There's actually somebody that did some editing work for you that I actually know. I was like, wow, you know him? So we'll definitely talk about that answer. But listen, at the end of the day, yes, you might have done different things, but you know what? It's people like Mr. Barris who always give me good advice, always give me good influence, that what you've done at the end of the day, you know you better than anybody else. Nobody can walk in your shoes and judge you. You've done things, and you've done them for the right reasons, and you've done them here to help a lot of people, and that's why we wanted this day to be really about you and everything you've done for this sport. I know WWE is getting ready to recognize the 40 years of Hulk Hogan in the WWF, WWE, but we kind of wanted to get ahead of it here on Sportswire and recognize Jack Delta, the destructive Jack Delta, for everything he's done in his 8-year career, winning 27 championships, being in 23 promotions, 8 states, everything that this man has done. We wanted to recognize it in a way because I think at this level, you are our Hulk Hogan. You are our Hulk Hogan of this sport and what you've done here. Yes, Chris Jones is going to be a cheap plug. Chris Jones is going to be inducted in the first of our second class of the XCW in the Sportswire Hall of Fame coming up Wednesday night. But the facts are we wanted to make this monumental in recognizing and acknowledging you for all that you've done.
Oh, yeah. And see, that's the best part is before the air, we started talking about this and I realized everybody gets these like Hall of Fame things. Everybody's now Sportswire Hall of Fame.
You've been inducted.
Nobody's gotten their own day
yet.
Got
inducted into one. Yeah, I wanted to throw a curveball out there for people. I mean, yes, I will ask you at the end, would you like to be in the Sportswire Hall of Fame? But I wanted to throw a curveball out there because I felt to me, let's celebrate you in a different way because I think really what you have done in this sport and going to different places that, certainly, of course, XCW, I think, stands on its own. I know you've been there, TBW, same thing, but the other promotions that you've gone to and given them opportunities to go out there and grow using your name from places, I think that's to really be commended. And I would hope that more people would look at that and appreciate that and, forget about certain things and think about the fact from what you've done for this sport. You are the definition of all wrestling matters. Yes, you always talk about quality over quantity. Yes, you talk about, the different things that you look for. But the facts are, is when I think about the definition of all wrestling matters, that definition is the destructive Jack Delta.
I do want to say there are, especially since I started doing a lot of the crossover stuff, because I will say, I know crossover competition has existed for such a long time.
Oh, for sure. Yes, we know that.
I will equate it back to one of the first crossovers that like made really big mainstream things on YouTube was back when I was in MABW and we crossed over with EBW in New Jersey. Yes. And ever since then, that's become the kind of like the culture of just realizing.
And EBW is a company actually I talked about over the weekend. So small world there, EBW. So, what a small world.
It might be a different EBW. There are thousands of those EBWs, but the one that I wrestled for had like 3,000-4,000 subs on YouTube. They're not active anymore, but the entire crossover culture of like wrestling spawned, I feel like, from that, because before that you'd see it like here and there, but it wasn't to the point that the crossover exponentially jumped both companies to a higher standard. And since then, there have been tons of people who've tried to, emulate what I do by going to different companies, going to different states. But nobody goes for the reason that I go. I feel like a lot of people go for, more exposure for themselves or to wrestle a specific person. But I go simply because I think going to a company, getting the experience of what it's like being backstage with them, and understanding the culture of why their YouTube channel works the way it does. The reason they have maybe 50 subscribers or the reason they have 4,000 subscribers.
Sure.
And the care and the stake that they have in their product. I get to see that firsthand. And a lot of people, their reputations precede them, and they'll make assumptions on if they're a good person, if they're a bad person. They might have heard this, they might have heard that. I go experience it for myself, and I get to understand that that's why they are the way that they are. Because I feel like the companies that last the longest are the ones that care the most.
Absolutely. And I think that some places that you've been to, such as XCW, to me, is the gold standard of this sport. To me, XCW is on the Mount Rushmore. That's why XCW, we honor and praise every single day. I will get to comments in a second, but I have to ask you almost the dumb question. And you are now the brand new XCW New Age champion. Obviously, we're in the middle of XCW week. We had Jackson Law yesterday. We had DJ Wahlberg Thursday. We have Chris Jones to induct him as a part of the first member of our second class in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame Wednesday night. But I have to ask you the obvious question. And what does it mean to you now to be the XCW New Age champion?
Oh, dude, I can't even quantify how happy being the XCW New Age champion makes me. Simply because, for the longest time, you can go back through the years and years and years of product with XCW. It's just,
Oh my God.
They have a rocky relationship with outsiders, and the fact that they tape so often. I feel like this has probably been mentioned across some of the podcasts, but they tape like once, maybe twice a month. And for an outsider to come in, you have to commit to a schedule. And the way that encounters worked and the way that it was very outsider heavy based.
Yes.
And,
Oh my God. We had Jacob Collins, obviously your colleague at ROW, Omen and Soldier. Big shout out to them. They're in the Hall of Fame. I mean, JX, a man you know very well, also from ROW. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of really unique guys. The Midwest Express.
Yeah, it was such a wide variety of talent too. It wasn't like, a lot of like wrestlers will fit like a same type of genre or category. You had powerhouses with the IMF guys. You had like technical and power with me. You had like high flying, and there was just a crazy amount of talent in that building at once. It was probably one of the most generational talent pool I've ever seen.
Yeah, I feel like it was almost in a way. It was like, I don't know if obviously Omen and Soldier spoke about it. Justin Parsley, spoke a lot about it off the air with me, a little bit on the air. DJ as well. Yes, love the XCW guys, love all the guys that were on the show. But I feel like it was almost like maybe like first day of school, like almost when you had all these new people. You're like, do I know you? Have I not seen you before? It's almost like, did it feel that way for you? Almost like it was like first day of school with all these new talents that were coming in and wrestling on these encounter shows.
Well, to a certain extent, that kind of like pardon the language, that kind of cherry's been popped for me.
I understand that, but there were still people that you didn't see. You haven't been in the same.
That is true, because like the IMF guys had gone to ROEW and I hadn't met them there, and that was 5 minutes from my house. So it's like, I mean, it was strange meeting like a bunch of new people all at once. But that's the wonderful thing about like wrestling culture, especially like the people like who've been in it for a while. Once you kind of get to a locker room, there's just this kind of vibe to it. And it's kind of hard to describe unless you are a wrestler. You kind of show up, you like shake people's hands, you introduce yourself, and you just kind of become part of this like communal.
Yeah, it's like a fraternity almost in a way.
Yeah,
I would describe it. It's like, okay, you were all a part of it. And yeah, I mean, maybe not the closest with some, maybe more others you're more closer with, but there's still kind of still that respect. Hey, you went out there, you've been in the ring, you're obviously doing something here for XCW. XCW is trying something new here at the Encounter, something we really haven't seen before. It's been something that was heavily promoted. Obviously, we saw you in the pre-show of Halloween Harvest. We saw you there, but this is the big moment, and Blackheart hit the nail on the head. I think it was your second match, I think, and you win a title. And Eric Mason, let's talk about that for a second. Eric Mason, I had Eric Mason on the platform here about maybe a month and a half or so ago. Management and XCW can probably quote me on this, but Eric Mason's really been, I would say, one of the more impressive young talents in a while. Here's a guy in his first match, get this, in his first match wins that title and then reclaims the title back with Corey Lee. And Corey Lee, I mean, he is basically one of the GOATs all time in this sport. And, you go up there toe-to-toe with this guy and you feel that wrath. I mean, you got to talk about being in the ring and taking that title from Eric Mason, who a lot of people think in XCW could very well be a world champion. He was trying for that 7 defenses to get that shot at Leon Lux, who's very, very impressive in his own right. Leon Lux is a guy that's been in the pros. I mean, Leon Lux, to have him in our company and to be our international champion is a massive deal. So you have to talk to me about being in the ring with Eric Mason and what that means to take that title away from him in the New Age Championship.
Oh man, I know this is going to be copyrighted, and this is like the common joke to go for. But he promised me right before the match that I was going to get an old school ass whooping. If you go back and watch the first part of that match, I was getting tossed around that ring.
I did. I watched it. People were like, "What's going on here?" People were like, "You're very impressive." Blackheart does a great job on the call. Blackheart's been here on the show, and it was like, "Is this going to be like yeoman's work for Eric Mason?" It was like weird.
No, it was insane. That man was like kicking my ass. That deep six that he did to me was the first time and the only time in my life that I spun around. Like I'm big, so people don't like pick me up like that. And that was definitely one of the most interesting like thought processes of just like I'm spinning around, I'm in the air. It's just like, when do you actually like land on one of these things? No, but the process of fighting someone like Eric Mason is interesting because he's kind of just all power and like no like thought.
Well,
So
he's young.
it's kind of like,
He's an inexperienced wrestler compared to you.
yeah, he's in his first year. So it was kind of like unfortunate. Like I hope years down the line, Eric Mason and I can have like a even better match than we already have, simply because he'll have more experience and understand where he is in the business. But being able to go into XCW and win the New Age Championship, I can't quantify how insane that is. Simply because they've been around for 20 years. And the amount of people that have like won championships that fast is minuscule. You could probably count it on like two hands. I'm sure there's probably a compilation somewhere on the XCW channel about that.
Knowing Trump, he's probably working on that right now because, as I always say, XCW is like the WWE network. It's like 24/7 live footage, 24/7 this.
Yeah, you can put any like subtitle after XCW wrestling, and it's probably like a show somewhere.
I'm surprised you weren't even in the favorite food segments here. I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but that's what XCW has. XCW literally has everything. I mean, that's how good, not good, but great this promotion is, and you're a champion of it. I mean, you think about the impressive list of champions. ACT's our world champion. Brogan O'Shea from Belfast, the EBW champion. I mean, Jackson Law yesterday to conclude our first class in the Hall of Fame is the Money in the Bank briefcase winner. Justin Parsley and Rob's James Cerebral, the hardcore champion. I mean, Leon Lux, the international champion. And you're right there. I mean, I don't know in this sport if there's a more impressive list of champions around. I would dare say, even as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, the People's Radio Station, the voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, as Mr. James Barris says, I think that this roster of champions that you're a part of is even more impressive than many indie feds.
Oh, 100%. The amount of talent XCW has currently is just like absolutely.
Oh my god!
It is just unquantifiable. I think they can't even fit all these guys on the show if they wanted to. It'd be like a 3-4 hour show.
I think it was me and Mason, and I think Parsley, when he got inducted, we actually went through the roster, and there's like 15 to 18 guys. And I said off the top of my head, I think it was Parsley. He goes, "Okay, well, who would you say would be champion?" I listed off 15 to 18 guys in the roster. And I said that all and any other Fed would be world champions. But, facts.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what like 2024 holds going forward with XCW, with the amount of talent that they have. Just because, how do you even attempt to like try to fit all those puzzle pieces together? You know what I mean?
Well, that's why they're the gold standard of wrestling, and that's why people need to follow XCW on a number of different platforms, because I actually, as always, have the banners here. And you can do that very simply. You can watch Jack Delta on Encounters Episode 2 on YouTube at XCW Shelbyville, XCW All Access, also Instagram, XCW_Shelbyville, Twitter, XC Wrestling 1, Facebook, XCW Shelbyville. And if you want to buy some merchandise like I do, I have my Justin Parsley shirt, Jackson Law soon, XCWrestling1.wixsite.com/Shelbyville. We know one day, just maybe, some Jack Delta merchandise will be on that XCW website. And if you want to follow the destructive Jack Delta, follow him on Instagram, or else there won't be much quality over quantity for sure. Instagram, Jack Delta 1999. TikTok, Jack.Delta7. Make sure you follow this man. I promise you it'll be worth it and some. So obviously, let me get to some comments, because a lot of people want to say things to you, and I want to come back.
Yeah, no, it just kept like flying through.
Because people are excited, and they love the intros. They love you having you. You're back home where you belong. I'm going to get to this guy because he said a few things about you recently on his company show, the Alliance Wrestling League, a man that's been here a couple times. That's Mr. ADT. I'm going to get to him. And he, by the way, he said that BYW's acronym should be changed to ADT. Just say, I'll get to him. I'm going to get to him. A lot of people want to talk. I want to say hello to a man you know very well, the BWU World Champion, who was on Sportswire not too long ago, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up Podcast. How you doing there, my friend? I believe it's 2:20 p.m. your time Tuesday. So hopefully you were out there staying well. And speaking of companies from Resurrection Wrestling getting ready for their live show, Elevation to come before that, D'Angelo the Flame, he's their internet.
Oh, I actually I watched him. Yes. He was on the TBW season finale.
Yes, he was. He was on Saturday's show. Yep. He was on
good stuff. He brings a lot of energy to his matches. I like this dude.
Oh yeah, he's got energy in the ring, outside the ring. He was here, and he was also a part of the Resurrection TBW War Game style match they had. He was a part of that as well back in the summer. Yeah. So this guy is a guy to watch. His name is D'Angelo the Flame. I think Mr. Law is being facetious. I'll say hello to him, though, but we're commemorating him. Yes, we are. It is Jack Delta, man. We love Jackson Law. He's obviously part of our history, but I want to make sure people see that here one more time. That is Jack Delta. That is why we are honoring him. Mr. Barris, how you doing? Good day, Jack. Can't wait to have you back on the Wired Up. And I told Ace this the other day on Instagram. Next time you go on the show, just tag me. Tag me on the shows because so I can watch them. He just had CJ the Alpha Junt on his show on YouTube last week. Really good interview. I even told Ace he did a great job. He was very professional. He had great questions. Keep up the great work, Ace Reed. I want to know all the podcasts you do. Tag me in all of them and make sure so I can watch them. Speaking of people and companies that I have to acknowledge, also a company I used to work for called Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. Hello, Tom and Delta. And this gives me a great segue to announce TBW coverage tomorrow night, Jack Delta, the Destructive One, in your chair in 24 hours and 8 minutes from now. The Hardcore King, the Atomic freaking Titan. He is back, the only Grand Slam winner in TBW history. And I want to do this here because I promised I would do it on the air, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio where all wrestling matters. We acknowledge and we respect our Hardcore King, the Atomic Titan, after what he did to the Grim Reaper, Joe Anderson. We acknowledge him, and he has certainly proven his place alongside the greats of hardcore legends like Sergeant Jimmy Controversy, Mikey Anarchy, Obey, Hardcore, Mac 10, and even the boogeyman of the Midwest, the Hardcore God, Omen Black. Atomic freaking Titan, the Hardcore God, talks about all of that here and some. Well, Hardcore King, he talks about all of that here coming up tomorrow night, 24 hours and 7 minutes from now. You will not want to miss that here. So certainly I'm looking forward to that. That's my plug. Want to say, I don't know if you met him in Encounters, but his father.
I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, you did?
I did.
Good. What did you think of him, actually? Because he
man, he's such a fun guy.
He is the man. This guy, Michael Blackheart, his father-in-law, I'm sure you know, is Festus Davis. By the way, Festus apparently is coming to Sportswire Radio. We actually are in the works. Oh my God,
you dug up his bones? You found him?
We found him. Let me just say, we certainly did a lot of investigating work to get Festus on the show. Let me just say, it was definitely a lot of investigating. I want to say hello to the 7th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, the IMF Hardcore Champion. He is the Hardcore God, Omen Black. Delta, welcome back to my show. It is his show on Sportswire. We're going to have Omen and Soldier back on here later this week. Thank you, guys. Mr. Barris, by the way, our Culinary Community Wrestling owner, thanks you. That's be damn straight. He said it's no CJ Black tonight, but it's all right. We're going to get to CJ Black.
Oh, come on.
I want to talk a lot about that, but I still want to finish some things here in XCW. Not Alabama you've wrestled. I'm going to get to that also. I promise I'm going to get to all that. A big hello to our champion. There it is from XCW's management. XCW, the goal setter. You know, when I think about XCW, I legitimately get goosebumps. Anytime that name XCW comes up, it's just for me, it's like it's a special moment. And that's why I'm so happy that XCW, we get to work with here on Sportswire. And I actually want to plug Mr. Jackson Law, because if it wasn't for Jackson Law, I wouldn't be able to get a chance to speak with XCW as regularly as it is. So thank you, Jackson Law, for that. I will come back to Ethan Sorensen. Thank you for that question. I'll get to that toward the end. Encounters was certainly a very special day. Amen to that. I want to say hello to the big man of DBW who wrestled a man that I got to bring up to you, Mr. Judgment. A little while. Going to hold on to that because we got our DBW shirt here. Thank you to management.
Yeah, that's what I thought that was. I didn't want to comment on that, but I thought that's what that was.
DBW shirt. Yes. Thank you to management there in DBW for also giving us the garb and as I always say, at this point, the only thing I wear is wrestling shirts. So that's I actually got invited. It's funny. I actually got invited to a wedding. There you go. I saw that. I actually got invited to a wedding on Wednesday, and I said I can't make it. I'm speaking to Chris Jones. People looked at me like, "Are you nuts?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm speaking to Chris Jones. He's on the Mount Rushmore of the sport."
No. They can word it however they want. They're just mad they didn't get the interview with Chris Jones.
That's you damn straight on that. Encounters was probably one of my favorite times to travel. Amen to that. And by the way, apparently Mr. Blackheart has this to say: "I'll see you a cold day in Hell, Jack Delta." Big fan. I don't know anything about that. I'll certainly say I know nothing about it, but I'm going to say, Michael, you were awesome. But I agree with you on this. XCW is the epitome of wrestling. I've seen these guys put everything out there for 10 fans as if it were a full arena. And you know what? That's why XCW and Jack Delta are always going to be recognized on Sportswire Radio, because XCW and Jack Delta is where it's at. Let me get to a lot more comments because people really
Yeah.
want to talk, and I'm really well behind. It was a pleasure meeting Delta. I'm CJ's best friend. I'm supposed to hate Delta, but the guy makes it hard to hate him. That's what we
Yeah,
got.
man. I'm a genuine person. I will say I'm gonna like pull back the curtain a little bit. Ages ago, there was it was around the time I had to like step away because of my elbow.
Yep.
I joined on the Sportswire like podcast, like just to tune in. And man, did I think the IMF guys hated me.
Yeah,
Because they were,
I think people were they were frustrated. They were like they I think people wanted to see you here still. I think that people wanted to get to know you. They felt like I think we were all just starting to get to know you. And I think that there was maybe not a misconception, but I think that people felt like they were just starting to get behind you and leave aside what the character was in ROEW and other places, but they were watching you and what you were doing for this sport. And I think obviously is what Omen and Soldier are doing is also very humble and commending on what they do because they travel also, to a number of
yeah.
places. But I think the facts were is that people really, they were just starting to get to know you here. And I think that
Mhm.
people they don't know. And nobody knows until we walk into someone's shoes. Ultimately, I could never in your shoes walk in them, just like I can't walk into Omen and Soldier's shoes. And I think that's why people at that moment they weren't sure, but I think as time heals all wounds, if that's the case. And I think that people are very happy to have you back because of what you've meant so much to the sport. And like I said before, you are kind of like our Hulk Hogan of backyard and underground wrestling. You put a lot of companies on the map. You went out there and promoted the sport. You are the definition of quality over quantity. You are the definition of all wrestling matters. And I think that that's why people, maybe some felt one way, some didn't. But the facts are is that as people have gotten to know you, they know that you are who you are and you've done so much for this sport. And that's why we're so happy to have you back.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's I don't know. It's hard to like quantify this, but a lot of people do like how do I word that? They see my social media feed, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be, and they see all the character work and they see how I opinionate myself on stuff and how I feel like there should be a certain standard for wrestling. I know all wrestling matters, but there should be a serviceable amount of like believability to it. And people get
Sure.
really mad when I opinionate that, right? So a lot of people see that and then they get super angry because they feel like I'm targeting them when usually it's a general blank statement, but it's kind of like the glass shoe fits. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, you've been in 23 promotions, you've traveled, you've been to different places, you've seen different things, you see things from a different line. Just like when Jackson was here yesterday, he's now home in XCW, but he's traveled also. There are
Mhm.
people that are going to go about and say things in a different way. And I think that in a lot of ways, you are here trying to actually help a lot of these companies in terms of giving them the answers. I think, as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'll get to more comments. I promise you, I know people want to talk. But I think for what you've done specifically with one company to kind of break the fourth wall or to take the curtain off down, whatever you want to call it, you've really helped ROEW in a lot of ways. I know we're going to talk about CJ in a few minutes. We're going to talk about the match, but you helped
Yeah.
that company, I think, in terms of everything that company has to offer, in terms of their storytelling, in terms of their characters, how people get immersed in them, in terms of what their ring ability is. I think the biggest example of what you've done, again, is your work in ROEW. Maybe it doesn't show up in the wins and losses, but I think that company, you being a part of that company in the last year, I think that's your best work, as a matter of fact, in terms of helping a company grow. Because I look at where ROEW was, and I look at where ROEW is, and I look at where ROEW will be in about 6 months.
Yeah, ROEW for like more curtain pulling back and stuff. I'm not going to go too much into it because this is more of a current event type thing. This isn't more of a
Right.
backstage type thing. But ROEW wouldn't be around at all anymore if it wasn't for me finding them and starting to wrestle with them. Because I definitely have seen CJ Black talk about this, so I can talk about this.
Yep.
Him and Jason Storm, that Detroit Riot match that I
Yes.
found them through. Was supposed to be their last match. I'm pretty sure. It was supposed to be their last like hoorah because CJ Black had run ROEW in around 2008.
Yeah, we had him on, in a break the fourth wall type of thing as well, and he spoke about it, I think, on the Nemesis sessions. Yeah, sure,
Yes.
we know all about it.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for me finding them and seeing how close they were to me, and continuing to wrestle with them and pushing for them to not only like improve with themselves, but also traveling because Jason Storm and Jacob Collins have also broken out on their
Yes,
own.
Jake, you wrestled Jacob in XCW, and he's got
Yes.
Brady Branson. I mean, Jacob Collins, like in XCW, he's like I don't know, he's almost like Roman Reigns in ROEW. I don't know, but in XCW, he's like unbeatable.
Yeah, which is insane because in ROEW, he's just like this nice little likable guy, but someone like shitting his Wheaties or something over
I
in
was gonna
XCW.
say it's like the old story. I think it was when X-Pac was I think he was like high or something, and he crapped in one of the Divas' pants or food bag or something. I'm seriously, in XCW, he's like a totally different animal.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like that movie Split. You get like Jacob, you get Jacob, and then you get like Mr. Collins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but
no, just to encapsulate that conversation, It's essentially, a lot of my like proud work from ROEW, because when I first started with them too, you can go back and watch this. This is like the most insane thing that I've ever seen. Was just like they had like a base in their garage. It wasn't even a ring at the point that I started wrestling with them. There were no ropes. There were no posts. It was just this. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just this platform with like tires, and like it was like the most backyard setup I'd ever seen, but it was in a garage, and they had it for a certain amount of time, and then they finally, like, if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have gotten the ring. They wouldn't have like upped the quality. They wouldn't have gone and brought in people like Captain Law or Jackson Law or whatever he decided.
IMF guys came in, JX came in.
Yeah, the IMF guys, JX, all of these guys, and all of the people that want to go to ROEW now.
Well, I think it's the listen. I again, and I'm going to get to comments. I don't want to go too much on this. We've done it before, but it's the setup there. It's the ability to go out. There's a different feel in that company versus other companies. There's just a different feel to it, and that's why we love ROEW. Follow them at ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube and Instagram.
And another thing too, before we get to more comments too, is another really good like thing about ROEW is that, especially with like some of the undercard performers and some of the performances of even like our top tier talent.
Sure.
If booking and management isn't proud of the match, we're not going to put it out like a lot of other places would, just to fill the spot. We don't necessarily care if like we go a month without an upload, as long as the upload comes out and it's sufficient. Because there are matches that I know of that have gotten completely scrapped or cut or even lost sometimes, just simply because it wasn't up to like what we would post.
But that shows you a dedication and a believability in what they're doing, and that shows you that they care about what their product is, and that's why that's a company that I will continue to say is one of my favorites, and I hope you as well go out and watch this man's match with CJ Black. It is closing in on 800 views in the short time of a week. Go out there and sub their pages, and go out there and support them. Omen says, very humble, kind, and intelligent guy. Definitely agreed on all fronts. I want to say hello out there to Jules NYC. Jules, fill in the blanks. How you doing out there? You're from New York, I can see. My home. Good evening, Tom and Jax. She says, hello, D'Angelo. Yes, D'Angelo is going to be back on Sportswire. Stay tuned for that soon. Titan is about as hardcore as the guy I ran out of Wisconsin. Who's that guy out of Wisconsin again? I don't know anything about Wisconsin other than the Packers are in the playoffs. But
yeah, all I know about Wisconsin is they have cheese.
Well, you know what? We'll see about that. Big Tech says no respect for the Atomic freaking Titan. I am going to get to this company as well. This is a company, by the way. I have a thought on.
No, I saw that in the little thing, and I visibly.
I'm going to ask a question on them. This is a company, by the way. This is a company people need to go out and subscribe to. This company is really not a underground yard company. No. This is a pro wrestling company. They are, to quote Cooper Dragon, 7 out of 7 on everything they do. They are no, they are. I will say that.
Just hit 4K too.
Definitely, they are awesome. D'Angelo says, hello, Jules. Speaking of people that heard what I said about them, the Atomic Freaking Titan, well, your
Oh, God.
hardcore king has arrived and give me the respect I deserve. I'll be live tomorrow on Sportswire Radio. Tune in and get you don't like the haircut? What's the matter? You don't like the haircut no more? You don't like the glasses, Jack Delta?
Oh, man, he's just, oh, no. No, I used to like Atomic Freaking Titan, but there's just this, like, little turn of just something in his, like, ego recently that just, he's turned into this, like, almost like Matrix looking thing.
I said that last week on the show. He reminded me of the Neo in the original Matrix movie. That's exactly it. You know what? It's the red or the blue pill. What's it? Red or the blue? Which one does he take?
Oh man, he took the wrong one. I'll tell you that.
Well, most people would say I took the wrong pill from the minute I was born. So hey, what can you do? It was funny. My cold day in hell comment is that I'm attending cold day in hell as a fan with my family. Oh. Okay, stay tuned. We'll certainly stay tuned. Titan, your only fan is yourself and the guy who sells you those dumb turtlenecks. I'm saying no comment on that. I want to say hello to my buddy Drake Golddragon. Drake is from Resurrection Wrestling. We're going to have Drake on probably next week at some point. Big Tech says thank you to Omen. Delta, never hated you, my man. Just love pushing people's buttons. I think that's kind of what I said. There you go. Exactly said what I said in a simpler way. There you go. Good stuff. Omen Black with a dot. Mediocre Queen. I don't know about that. I mean, mediocre Queen. Mediocre would be the Seattle Seahawks these days. I recognize Jack Delta for what he's done, but I will get that win over you someday. Congrats on the. Oh, he's referring to TBW.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say nothing on that though. Omen, I see you want to disrespect your king again. Oh my God.
They're having a whole. They're
going back and forth. I'm gonna let them go back with that. But I do actually want to get to something. I'm gonna jump around. Actually, I want to get to a company called Versus the World Wrestling, if you don't mind. Here's the reason why I want to get to them, because Jack Delta. I'm sure you're aware of at this point. A few days ago on Sportswire Radio, I actually had the honor to have on. A guy that calls himself a one-man revolution, the real boss man. He's the brand new Versus the World heavyweight champion. His name is Aaron Jones. And he's also, by the way, the DBW Hub City champion. Apparently, Chase Wakefield says he's his best friend, though Aaron Jones doesn't seem to want to agree or basically echo that sentiment. But the reason I bring them up is because, you were brought up, VTW's obviously got this superb setup. VTW's obviously got the 7 out of 7 star look, and it's got basically a pro wrestling show feel. This guy, Aaron Jones, I know you obviously took care of Eric Mason. I know you and CJ battled it out, and it was a rumble and tumble and, street fight for the ages. But you got this guy, Aaron Jones, out there, and he's kind of like cocky cowboy Southern drawl. I'm sure you watch VTW. What do you think on that company? And what do you think also on this guy, Aaron Jones, who's now the new boss and the real boss as the VTW champion of the world?
All right. So first, I want to say VTW itself, one of the greatest yard promotions of all time. Simply and without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest place I've yet to go to, because I've done ESW, I've helped build other places, but VTW established that area, in my opinion. Sure. I know there's DBW, I know there's NUW, I know there's UWF New York, but VTW itself is the place. That place has established so many people. It has had so many events. It's the ones that ran Best in the Yard.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
And that alone on their catalog out trumps most other companies' entire existence. Just that one show.
Aside from XCW.
The talent that not only is on it, but have gone on to the indies and have done fantastic things there as well.
They're in the indies already.
And I know they just run that area.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are familiar with VTW because of the rebranding that they've done. But yes. I've followed them since way, way back. 2017, I've followed them since then, and it is the biggest place I've yet to go to. And I feel like, in a sense of every company that I've gone to is a new challenge for me to re-get myself over with that new audience, because every audience is different. That's the point of crossovers. It's like taking one piece of a puzzle, but another piece of puzzle, putting it together, and now you have a new audience. but VTW is the biggest one I've yet to go to. And without like going too crazy into it, it is probably the last place in my life that I'll ever go and wrestle for that I'm actually like nervous to go to.
Wait. You're nervous about going into VTW? Why would you, of all people, the destructive Jack Delta, why would you be nervous going into VTW?
Because it's such a big place.
Yes, I agree with that.
It's one of the last places on my list that I have to go to. That the roster's completely stacked out the ass. Like,
oh my goodness! I mean,
and you could put me up against any member of the roster.
There's about eight guys I'm friends with in the VTW, DBW, NUW, UWF, and I would say, yeah, you know what? Those would all be dream matches, especially, let's say, for example, a few that come to mind. I mentioned Aaron Jones is one. Second one, I would have to throw easily out there for me. A dream match would be you and the Blaze Ace Christian, who I think is going to go out in about 4 or 5 years if he chooses to go in this path. He would go out there and be in some major promotions. And this other guy, also he's a big man like you. I don't know if I should refer to him as Asher Christ, Mr. Judgment. And,
oh man, that's what I'm talking about. Like with this area, you have so many people to dig into and so many.
Brandon Castelli, I got to give Brandon a big shout out. Got to throw him as a.
Brandon Castelli. I love Brandon Castelli. That is my boy.
Yeah, love Brandon. Brandon's awesome.
But no, I'm going to cycle back to the original comment on Aaron Jones.
I
feel like he's the hot button topic of versus the World Wrestling.
He's the chairman.
Some would even say vintage. And Aaron, I absolutely like. I'm not even going to like try to front here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You are one of the most accomplished wrestlers in that entire area.
Oh, no
and you have a lineup of matches and opponents and championships and just incredible legacy over there. But I will say, despite all that, despite my nervousness and butterflies in my stomach about potentially coming over there and wrestling, I absolutely hate what you fucking stand for now. Whoa. You are not the boss man. The boss man's up there. You are no type of boss man in my heart. And everything that you stand for, Aaron Jones, isn't right. So if there is one day in the future that me and you stand toe to toe, know that for him and for the VTW audience and for everybody in that locker room that can't get past you, I'm going to knock you on your ass.
That sounded like a real boss man like promo. That sounded like a one-man revolution promo. That sounded almost like to me that you were challenging the real boss man, Aaron Jones, and you seemed pretty confident about that. You know what? He might be worried about Merrick right now, but I think that he might be worried about you, the destructive Jack Delta. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, no, and I can tell you right now, I don't care what time of the year it happens to like line up that it happens. I'd flaunt my 27 championships all I want. I don't want that on the line.
Yeah,
I simply want Delta versus Jones.
Now if I was a promoter, if I was the proprietor of VTW Wrestling, I would certainly say that would be a match I would make it almost, as I said, with Big Tex, kind of similar to another person I'm going to get to with you in a second, who I just referenced. Mm-hmm. I would basically think of it like a schoolyard, get everybody out of the way, just clear out the way, and let you guys just have an old-fashioned street fight, an old-fashioned match.
Dude, that sounds right up my alley.
Well, you know what? Mr. Jones, he seems to like coming on to Sportswire. He seems to be able to kind of communicate, and he says he would never back down from a fight. He says he'll take on anyone. It seems to me like, one of these days, I may have to put Mr. Jones on the hot seat on Sportswire to ask him that question about potentially wrestling you maybe one day, maybe not even for a title, not even for your XCW New Age title, because you know what? XCW is the gold standard. XCW, you're a champion of where obviously everybody in this sport has to prove themselves. So clearly one company on one side, you're representing XCW, VTW on the other end, he's representing. And also further on that DBW, he's their Hub City champion. You also represent ROEW. These are 4 of the best companies in this sport. And you know what? Forget all those championships. Forget all about that stuff. I think that would certainly be a real boss fight. Forget about, obviously, everybody talking about the Super Bowl this year. Everybody talks about Gunther versus Brock Lesnar. Who's Roman Reigns going to fight? What's the future of the Royal Rumble? Forget about all of that. I can assure you, if Jack Delta's in the ring with the real boss man, Aaron Jones, that would be a match where I'm not quite sure the earth will ever be the same above and below ground. And speaking of above and below ground, before I get to comments, I referenced this other guy. He obviously speaks about, you spoke about upstairs. You spoke about, obviously, I would assume referencing a higher power. And, there's this guy,
to a certain extent,
of a shirt that I have called DBW, and he's the DBW world champion. Big Tex knows him pretty well. He calls himself the Prophet of Purgatory, calls himself the final boss. His name's Mr. Judgment. Some may refer to him, if there's some similarity or not, in VTW, as Asher Christ. He's the real YouTube champion. Once he comes and reclaims that title, hopefully Chase Wakefield doesn't go in the box after that title it's held from. But, you and this individual, certainly you speak about higher powers, you speak about upstairs, Jack Delta, you've squared off with a lot of people, but I've seen Mr. Judgment many times this year. I've had him on my platform twice, as a matter of fact. And what I've seen him do to the likes of a very good man in Brandon Castelli, what he did to the likes of a big man in Big Tex, and even his own son, for example, and the Blaze Ace Christian, and even the man that he took the title from, speaking of the UWF, and Scorpion the Assassin, Jack Delta, the destructive one, you and that final boss, Prophet of Purgatory, Mr. Judgment, or some may refer to him as Asher Christ, that might be a match where we might have to call in a coroner, or maybe have to find a higher power to see what will happen in the afterlife between the outcome of that match. What do you say to that?
I can't even fathom that match, because Asher Christ, Mr. Judgment, he's a scary man. I'm not.
I've had him here twice.
I'm not even gonna front on that. I can puff my chest out a little bit, but he's a scary man. He's done some very, very scary things to a lot of the competitors in that area, because I've watched that area for forever. But the thing that people like Aaron Jones or Asher Christ will forget about until I'm standing across the ring from them is that all of the threats that they throw my way, all of the issues that they would have with me, I've heard a million times before, because I've gone to 23 companies. I've gone to ESW. I've gone to all of these places, and every single one of them, line them up, knock them down. They all have the same complaints, but I still come out victorious. I still have won 27 championships, and I might be a little scared walking out the curtain to go fight Mr. Judgment, but I will say...
I see his entrances all the time in DBW, and I'm like, I'm certainly, I speak to the man, and I'm like, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Judgment. Yes, yes, Mr. Judgment.
But I will say, no matter how scary he is, no matter how many times, he probably will end up slamming me if I ever decide to stand across from him. The match will end the same that it always does. Whether it be a Rainmaker, whether it be a Delta driver, whether I have to make him tap out, Mr. Judgment, Asher Christ, whether it be DBW, VTW, or you decide to throw your ancient ass in a car and drive out to ROEW, the result will be the same. So if you're listening,
I'm sure that Mr. Judgment will hear this. I can promise you that he will hear it. I can certainly promise you, though, after what he did and lifting up over his head, Big Tex with that Judgment Slam, he's certainly going to obviously kind of look at you and say, you know what? That could be something there. Certainly he's vanquished almost everybody in DBW, so maybe that's something he would consider.
Yeah, I'm probably spitting too much. He's probably at home listening to this somewhere, and he's putting some stuff in a cauldron and cursing.
No, he's listening. No, actually, I'll save you the trouble here. I'll take the heat for you. He's listening to Ghost on basically replay. It's Ghost on loop. It's all he does is listen to Ghost on loop. I'm just telling you, he listens to Ghost on loop. Nothing wrong with that. He's Mr. Judgment. But before I come back to some other current contemporaries of yours. Yes. Versus the World Wrestling Management, apparently on their social media, They heard what we had to say, and I like to pull it up. After hearing that promo, Jones versus Delta seems pretty damn intriguing, huh?
I mean, if management is saying it and Aaron Jones can't get out of it, what's stopping it from happening?
Well,
That's
I
all
actually
to
might be able
them.
to. Well, I actually might be able to handle this for you. This could be maybe it's Chase Wakefield. Maybe Aaron Jones is going to send Chase Wakefield out there and do the third
No, that
party.
grimy little dude.
He's a
He
Bitcoin
keeps
billionaire,
trying
though.
No, I don't believe it. Have we ever
No.
actually seen his receipts, or is he's just running around saying this?
He claims he's really a Bitcoin billionaire. He claims that he's actually.
Yeah, and I'm a millionaire too.
I mean, you're Jack Delta. I'm not going to question you if you say something with validity. But Chase Wakefield, some people say that. Some people say that the win weighs more than Chase Wakefield. Some people say that Chase Wakefield is delusional. Some people say that Chase Wakefield's had lead paint. I don't tend to think that, but maybe if this match wouldn't happen, it's because Mr. Jones would use Mr. Wakefield to test his friendship to kind of stand in his place to take you on. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know, man. I feel like that'd be a very slimy thing to do. Everybody wants Delta versus Jones, and
I want to see.
And trademark here, generational dream match.
You know what? And if the money's an issue, this will cover it.
Oh, goddamn, Tom! You don't have to flex on us like that.
Well, if management can't afford to put the match on, we'll put it on for them on Sportswire. So the point is that we'll put it on out there. If we have to, we'll make sure that this match happens because the people want to see this. Everybody that's a fan of VTW, everybody that's a fan of Jack Delta wants to see it. And that's why we want people to, by the way, go watch VTW on YouTube at VT Wrestling. Make sure you go support them. They've gained over 100 subscribers alone in the last 30 days. So go out there and join the effort. Let me get to more contemporaries of you. I want to say hello to my buddy, the 8th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, the IMF World Champion, Mr. Soldier GP. Good kid, not a good guy, but a good kid. Kind of half a loaf. D'Angelo, I think, is basically, well, I'm used to doing mic drops at this point, so certainly, that's kind of what we do here on Sportswire to hammer the point across. Yeah. We're people of our word here. Jules thought this was funny with Titan and Omen. I'm going to let those guys handle that on tomorrow's show. Big Tex wants to say, who knows what could happen in BTW? Yeah, you know what? But that's the point. I think that a lot of people would, like to know. I think that's a match that I would certainly put my money where my mouth is. I can certainly do that. I think that that's a lot of people I think would love to see you in VTW. Obviously, again, there's contractual obligations. The champion has to decide, does he want to square off with you? Does he feel that, maybe he wants to give what the people want, but Aaron Jones isn't in the business of giving the people what they want in VTW, so I don't know that answer.
Yeah, and you know what? I will note something on that too, because I know Aaron Jones. I know what type of player he is, right? I did say that it doesn't have to have the titles on the line, but if there is the chance that VTW is willing to put the titles on the line, that'll shut him up a little bit more. So I know he's going to try to slide his way out and say that so he doesn't have to defend his title. But if it lines up that he is champion, I do want to challenge for it.
All right, we're going to definitely get to some of those things. I want to come back to some other places as we're here on Sportswire Radio with the one and only destructive Jack Delta. He is our reigning, defending XCW New Age champion. He will be out there in Encounters Episode 6 upcoming next Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time against Jesse Justice. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, and your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. If you like what you hear from us here on Sportswire Radio, check us out anytime on our YouTube channel. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Also on our internet radio station at sportswireradio.org. We actually play an XCW sort of show called Giving Receipts from two guys named Jaden and Fletch. They put their wrestling spin on things. We play it on our internet radio station. If you want to read about the announcement of Jack Delta Day, you can read it here on our blog at tumblr.com/Sportswire Radio. And again, check us out for past, present, and future shows. And reminder here on Sportswire Radio, tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, to be acknowledged and respected, the hardcore king himself, the only Grand Slam winner in TBW history, the Atomic freaking Titan, is live. He returns and he takes his place in history on Sportswire Radio. And we acknowledge and respect this man who's got the best turtleneck in the business, the man who's got the best glasses, and the man that has already surpassed in his career at hardcore matches the likes of Sergeant Jimmy Controversy, Mikey Anarchy, Obey, Hardcore, and maybe some would even say Omen Black, the Atomic freaking Titan, talks about all of that here and some. Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time to be here on Sportswire Radio to take his place in the first of the second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Chris Jones, the EBW leader, is here. He's going to talk about his match upcoming for a match he created at EBW's own against XEW champion ACT at Cold Day in Hell for ACT's world title. Will EBW reclaim the XEW title? I'm going to ask the EBW leader about that here and some. You will not want to miss it again. 9 o'clock Eastern time, EBW leader, the legendary Chris Jones, to take his place in history as the first member of the second class of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He'll talk about his match again, main event, Cold Day in Hell, XCW Championship, him and ACT. EBW certainly gone through some personnel changes, but it's a meaner EBW. They still got Brady Branson. Miano Diaz is going after Fletch. They've still got Luke Blaze, obviously, in their corner. They certainly trimmed the fat with Hayden Vex, and Chris Jones is in maybe the most deadliest, the most diabolical frame of mind he's ever been in. He's been here in the past. He's requested a microphone. In addition to being inducted into the Hall of Fame, he's going to talk about here all of that and some. But right now, we are here with the legendary Jack Delta, the Destructive One, here, and celebrating Jack Delta for his everything he's done for this sport, all the contributions he has given us here over the past 8 years. We're just taking him to 27 championships, 23 promotions in 8 states. We are recognizing that here. He is our Hulk Hogan for the backyard and the underground. That's why we have recognized January 8th, 2024 to be Jack Delta Day. Let me get to some more current events here. Obviously, I see here a company called the Alliance Wrestling League. Now, Mr. Law was trying to say something else, but we'll come back to him. The Alliance Wrestling League. There was a guy at the beginning of the show, ADT, who, as I said, he thinks that the acronym of Backyard Wrestling should be changed to him. He was their obviously most dominant world champion in history. He's got what's called the NEW Championship down, and he referenced your name. You actually have some history with him in ROEW, and I was wondering what you thought about this individual, ADT, and what he had to say about you on their most recent show, which, by the way, you can check out on their YouTube channel at Alliance Wrestling League.
All right. I knew this one was going to come up because this is how a lot of feuds for me go, where a lot of people like ADT like to step up. He's from the AWL down in Alabama, and I will quote you on something. I have wrestled in Alabama before, so that's not a new thing for your boy. Secondly, changing the name to ADT is one of the most egotistical things I've ever heard. Simply because you are forcing your way into history. You got in your car with all your buddies, and you came up to my place to make your name. And then you got mad because I understand how all this wrestling works, right? Some dude comes out with the other dude by the side of the ring. I'm not going to take too kindly to that because there's some shenanigans afoot. And he got mad that I just started to mess with him, to the point that he actually got kicked out of the arena. And since then, it's been his mission to get me to come down to Alabama to come and wrestle him for the champion that I previously had pinned in AJ Morgan.
Yep.
ADT, understand that you can call me out as much as you want. And while I'm not afraid of a challenge, you have to recognize something. That you forcing your way into ROEW, you imitating Jason Storm with his entrance and calling me out on your product, you are still beneath me. You might be a big dude, but I will lay you out. And there's no doubt about that. And the best part about it now is if I do decide to come down there, which I may or may not do, you have a new division championship waiting for me on a silver platter. So ADT, keep calling me out. Keep saying my name. If ROEW management decides it's best for both of our products to go down there, I'll come down there. But you can keep sounding off in comment sections. You can keep posting videos on your YouTube channel. But we'll see what the future holds.
So let me get this straight here, and I'm gonna get to Mr. ADT in a second. I'm gonna hold off to the outside comments. We'll get to them in a few minutes. But ADT, he was disposed of by Jason Storm in ROEW.
Yeah.
So for you, then it should be no problem. Then, if it happens to be that you go down to Alabama and go this time into his building, into his place, you should have no problem. If the wild card Jason Storm could beat ADT, you should have no problem doing so as well, right? Am I wrong or right?
Yeah, and that's no disrespect to Jason Storm either. Like it's just tiers and levels to the system. If one person can beat one person and I can beat that person, then I can definitely beat the bitch on the bottom. You know what I mean? So ADT, look, you can shoot past. You can shoot his comments right now.
I'm gonna get him in a second. I want to get to because I've had him on a couple times, and you know what? I actually want to bring him back on next month because he is very fascinating to me for a couple of different reasons. Because he's a very different opponent than you've seen. With all due respect to the different names that we just mentioned, Aaron Jones and Mr. Judgment, Asher Christ. I don't even know what else to name. Maybe it'll be Madonna next. But the point is that he's got a different background, actually. Let me tell you why he's got a different background. You tell me your thoughts. He's actually got a background. He was a power lifter. He was an amateur wrestler. And this guy, when he hits, it hits hard. He's he's a legitimate guy that, his background, I don't know if I've had anybody on, and I would even go say with the pro guys I've had on, that has his background where he's a pound for pound legit amateur wrestler powerlifter. I mean, are you still confident in knowing that his background from what I just told you about ADT? Still confident?
Oh, he can have any type of background that he wants, but he has to understand that even with his previous backyard wrestling history and all of the matches that he's had, I had more matches last year, despite my 2 breaks that everybody makes fun of, than he's had in his entire career. So he's just a bull running around looking for the little red drape. And he's going to run right into the wall. That wall is me. Because he can run around and say that he's got all these championships and all these accomplishments and stuff like that. But we see the other competition in AWL, none of them are making the name like he's doing, and that's simply because he's calling people out. That's almost being like the champion, like the world champion of the WNBA. How many people?
Wait! Did you just say that basically their competition is basically not even in your stratosphere? Did you basically even say that their competition is almost like beneath even I don't know, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse?
yeah, in my book, because it's like VTW, right, versus the World Wrestling. I go there and it's going to make absolute waves for both of us.
Yeah.
But I go down to AWL, it's going to make waves for ADT. It ain't going to make waves for Jack Delta.
But you're not concerned, though, that he might be motivated and the way what you're talking tonight, that he might of you and say, you know what? You spoke about me the way I did. I'm going to bring you, if management would contractually work that out with you and ROEW. I mean, you don't feel, though, that he would want to be motivated and you having in his house, and maybe that he looks to say, you know what? I'm going to make an example of you. Everybody knows Jack Delta. Listen, there are people that are pro wrestlers that know who you are. He's going to certainly want to try to make an example of you. You're not concerned about that?
No, not at all. This type of thing right here, this me talking to the camera and spitting the way that I do, it's lighting a fire under his ass. And I hope that in the time frame that me talking on this camera right now on Sportswire Radio to the time that it maybe potentially happens in AWL, that me and ADT go one-on-one for the very first time for the New Division Championship, that he takes that next leap. He understands what he needs to do for me to actually realize that he's actual competition to me. And that he takes that next leap and he understands what it means to be a backyard wrestling superstar. So I hope all of this makes him so mad. I hope it festers him up. I hope I wake up to 3 tags on Instagram tomorrow or 3 YouTube notifications from the AWL of him just running around rampant, throwing shit
you
around.
know
saying,
Hillbilly
Jack
Kelly.
Delta.
You know
I'm gonna
Hillbilly
kill
Kelly
Jack
very
Delta.
well. And you know what? I got to bring something else up. I'm sure you're aware of, maybe he'll even consult, and he may not want to do this necessarily, but he might even want to consult his cousin, the man that defeated you last week, the good guy CJ Black. You not concerned that maybe even the good guy CJ Black would want to give some pointers to ADT to give further advantages and to kind of be able to, if this happens contractually between both camps, that he can pull one over on you? You're not concerned about that, destructive Jack Delta?
I mean, that's a good point. That is a good point. CJ Black did.
I'm going to get to him next. I'm going to get to him.
He
Don't
did
you
beat
worry.
me.
I'm going to get to him.
I don't know. I feel like in terms of the CJ Black ADT kind of like talk like that, that kind of boils down to you can give people the answers to a test, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pass it. You know what I mean?
I didn't pass many tests growing up, so I could probably actually.
Yeah, I'm certain ADT didn't either. So,
well, I mean, that makes two of us, but I will tell you this much. I promise you, Jack Delta, just as you haven't been back on Sportswire Radio in over 6 months, we haven't had ADT back on in Sportswire. It's been over 3 months. I'm going to bring him back on in the month of February. And if Mr. ADT would like to talk about it, I would love to share his thoughts on what you had to say and some. Let me get to some of his comments. You slapped like a bitch. Shocked you didn't hurt your elbow. I think he's basically trying to break the fourth wall. He's trying to, quote unquote, disposed is wild. Dude kicked me in the balls.
I didn't see that.
Dude struggled against AJ Morgan. I beat him twice.
Yeah, okay, you can like flaunt that, but I guarantee you probably struggled too.
Did he really enlarge the belt, by the way? I feel like the belt's shorter.
Did he what?
Did he enlarge his belt? Because I feel like on AWL TV, the belt looks shorter.
No, I think that's like a perspective thing. Unless he's just like...
Oh, I was going to say,
I
just watched AWL, him with the new title, and I was like, the belt that big? It's been a while since I've been in a... Yeah, and I think it is a good time to come back onto sports. But I'm glad we both think alike. Let me get to a few more comments because I do want to actually bring ADT back on. So add that into the list. Yes, next month he's coming back to Sportswire. Maybe Jack Delta shirt on Shop Zone. Maybe that could be something that I might want to purchase after we're off. Yeah, if that's the case, an XCW Shop Zone list. Soldier GP, I gotta ask it for him. Would you ever consider going to the IMF?
Oh, well, we'll see. I made good relations with the IMF guys, and I know they frequent this a lot, and I know they'll hear this. And I know I made statements about potentially coming down there later in the year.
Never say never.
But
never say never.
Yeah, you have to understand that, like, in my docket of like how much I travel, I'm not doing what I did last year, and like I fronted too much. I burnt myself out. I went to way too many places too fast. This year I'm trying to space it out, and
Good.
like, to be honest, I'm not going to spoil where I'm going or what I'm doing, but
don't spoil anything because it'll come back to me and I'll get messages on Facebook. I've already had them overseas. I've had all that, so I'm going to certainly say don't do that. But what I will want to say is we want to see you here. We want to see you in action. So whatever you feel comfortable with, we support and love. That's why we recognize you. And by the way, I do want to go out there on the record and say if there is Delta merchandise. After we're off the air, I'm going to be getting my Jack Delta shirt. So that's going to be on the way.
XCWShopZone.com.
Oh, I know. I have my Justin Parsley shirt from there. Don't worry. I'm going to actually take care of that. So thank you, management, for letting me know. I will be buying my Jack Delta shirt right after we're off the air. So very, very good stuff. Before I get to CJ Black and obviously a few other things before we close the show, we're here with the legendary destructive Jack Deltas. We are recognizing again on January 2024 on all Sportswire radio platforms for it to be Jack Delta Day here. You can actually see it right here up and close. So that's why we want people to support Jack Delta and the many promotions he's in, especially right now in XCW and REW. But also check him out on Instagram at Jack Delta 1999 and on TikTok at Jack.Delta7. I actually want to ask you something because breaking the fourth wall for a second. What a small world wrestling is, because you actually know somebody that I actually know, and I'm actually supposed to interview at some point, but he's really like the true definition of an I've been everywhere man. That's James Fury. You have to talk to me about James Fury, because James Fury is the man. I know James Fury. I was like, when I saw on Instagram you knew James Fury, I'm like, forget about anything else. I got to ask him about James Fury because I happen to know him, and like, what a small, but then I realized he's from Michigan also. He's another Michigan guy. So talk to me about James Fury and your connection with him.
Oh, James Fury and I go way back. James Fury was the first company I ever technically wrestled for.
Oh, wow.
I'm not giving you the name of the company because all the wrestling was butt, and I don't want people cycling that back. Please, Captain Law, don't say the name. Um, um, James and I are like really good friends. We don't get to hang out as much as we'd like to, but he was
he's
with
busy.
me.
James is like, oh my God. I speak to the guy. He's like super duper busy.
Yeah, and Tom, you'd appreciate too that he's one of those guys that actually does believe in all wrestling matters because he's off in the pros and the entire Michigan indie scene, even some of my like people that I consider my best friend, will talk shit behind my back about me because I do backyard wrestling and underground wrestling and all that shit. And they'll hang out with me in person and they'll pretend it's not an issue.
Yeah.
But James, on the other hand, will support stuff of mine. He'll go out of his way to make highlights of mine if I ask him to. And James is one of the greatest souls on this earth. He's a little confusing, you know. He's a different type of guy. He plays his character, but heart of gold, brain of mush, you know, that type of thing. And James and I support him in everything that he does. He sometimes doesn't get his point across to the way that he wants to, but he's really talented in the ring. And I hope that with everywhere that he goes, that he finds the success that he wants because he pushes harder for this than a lot of other people that have tried doing the same exact thing that he's doing. And he's just insane. And the fact that you know him shows how well he markets himself because he's actually like one of the most insane people at promoting themselves because he understands social media more than anybody that I know. He in fact, I don't know if you've seen this, but on his social media things, he was in like the top 10 most viewed pro wrestlers on like Instagram altogether.
Yeah, I did hear about that actually. And the reason I heard about it is because a guy I connected you with is a friend of mine, one of my biggest supporters, like James Barris, is Darrow Johnson, who runs the Wrestling Warzone promotion out there in California, which James happens to be friends with. In fact, Darrow's the one that said, you've got to speak to James Fury. And that's how we've connected. Although James, again, is like, I've been everywhere, man, figuratively and literally in pro wrestling. And he's like, like he wrestles everywhere. So it's very hard to get him to come on the show. But James is aware of what I do. And I spoke to him, many times, and just a great guy. And he definitely knows how to get himself out there because he's wrestled in like so many different places that, you didn't even realize they existed.
Yeah, and one of the crazier things, if you dig through some social media, you'll actually go and find this. I did bring James to the ROEW arena one time just to hang out and practice. And we were meant to do that just kind of like just hang out and practice and stuff, but he ended up filming content from it. And so you can see an interaction somewhere online of James Fury and CJ Black. So,
oh, wow. Okay,
yeah.
You know what? I might, when James... Eventually, I get him on the show. Darrow's been trying to get different people on the show, and sometimes it's very hard, with scheduling. And James is definitely, a guy that we'll try to get on here for sure. So I want to give James a shout out actually, and make sure that he knows because what a small world. Wrestling is such a small world. When I saw that, I'm like, I have to ask him about that because if I don't, I'm going to totally forget that. And I'm glad that I got that in. I want to give a big shout out to Darrow, by the way. Darrow Johnson, the man who connected me to James Fury. Darrow has been one of my biggest supporters for over almost 2 years now. So thank you, Darrow, for your support. I'm a member of his group. I'm actually a moderator in his Facebook group for the Wrestling Warzone. And yeah, D'Angelo wants to wrestle you. A lot of people I know want to wrestle you. I know Soldier obviously would like to see you in IMF. You kind of answered that question. So obviously I want to get to kind of the meat and potatoes of the final part of the show here. And that's that ROEW World Heavyweight Championship match. The first match figuratively and literally of 2024. And what I'll continue to say, the best match of 2024. That match that you had with the good guy, CJ Black. In fact, the match was so good. It wasn't just so good. It was so great that Cooper Dragon rated it 7 out of 7 stars. And you have to talk about that match. Obviously, the match, will get to the outcome of it. But, what made that match, as great as it was? And in fact, I'll say it again, as I said it a couple of days ago on the air. That match was so good that I don't think pro wrestlers could wrestle the kind of match that you and him wrestled. Some of the different moves in the ring and the psychology and the technical aspects of, I've watched you for a while. CJ regardless of whatever, to break the fourth wall. I've watched him a lot throughout this year in ROW, but I think you wrestled a match that, frankly, I don't know if I've seen you wrestle in a long time. That was like a true, straight up old school wrestling match. That's why it's gotten as many likes, as many views as it has. And I think it'll get even further views because I want people to go and watch the ROW Backyard Wrestling. But what made that match as great as it was, a 7 out of 7 with yourself and CJ Black, a match that 1 year was in the making?
Oh man, there's so much to dig into with this like particular match because I knew this was going to be the meat and potatoes. And we're gonna fly a little bit in between like character stuff and like breaking the fourth wall on this one because I feel like this kind of deserves it more so than a lot of the other stuff that I've done.
Absolutely.
Firstly, I want to say the reason the match was so good are for two reasons. Number one is simply because we waited for a year. And I know like all the breaks and stuff like kind of damper that. But if this would have taken place back on the mat that we had, it would not be as watchable as it is. People would not like it as much as they do. The animosity would not be as high as it is. And secondly, in terms of like a me perspective for this match, a lot of the places that I go to, especially last year, while I appreciate everything that I've done, there's no dig on anybody that I'm like talking about. The reason the match with CJ Black was so good was because a lot of the places I go to, I wrestle a lot of greener guys. And a lot of the time when I go and I wrestle those types of guys, we'll go and we'll talk about match stuff, and a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm a brawler type. So that doesn't leave wiggle room for like really like coming up with super creative spots in terms of like chain wrestling.
Well, how about the spot where CJ was like upside down? I was like, how did he?
Well, that was completely uncalled. That was all his momentum.
That was like, no, but seriously, I was like, I have to bring that up because I watched it 3 times and I watched it 3 different times. I'm like, how did he pull that off?
Yeah, there's so something like that is the reason the match with CJ was so good is because going for like shoot skis here, and I know like a lot of people will rewatch their stuff. But when I rewatch my stuff, I don't rewatch it for the sole fact that I'm in it. I rewatch it for what I can improve on, and I know what to look for because I've been trained, And CJ hasn't been trained, but he's literally like somehow just gotten all of the knowledge in the world to be trained, essentially.
I think he has a gift of God that he actually do this stuff the way, because to break the fourth wall for a second, I know he's commenting, but to break the fourth wall, like what he does in the ring, it's really he has to have some just given talent. You trained for 6 months, so you weren't like you've seen it, you've seen people who can and can't. And he has some ability that he's able to do spots that I think again pro guys can't do.
Yeah, and he understands what he's looking for. That's a lot of the reason that a lot of like other guys that I wrestled last year and years before and stuff, it's just when I go out and I structure a match and stuff, a lot of the times when I go and do a match against specific people, I'll go back and watch it, and all I can remember is all the spots that they forgot. Because 90% of the time, there's like very few times that I'm not like tooting my own horn, but at the level of like where I wrestle, it's very, very rare that I'm the one that like messes up. And with CJ, and I will give him all the credit in the world here, I can't tell you how much of that match was actually structured in his favor, of him actually doing all the like some of the groundwork for it. And with that match in particular, we spent a few nights like training and practicing everything. And I know like in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of people can do that with how like crossover culture works. You drive 8 hours to a certain place and wrestle someone and stuff like that. And you have no time to like actually get in there and like practice and stuff. But me and CJ in particular, we've had a year of like talking about spots and coming up with ideas for this match and certain flows and like certain like moments. Because we realize like at the base level of it, it's all about the storytelling of it. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people go in there and they just kind of like wrestle around, and they're kind of like social media wrestlers, if that makes sense. They can post individual spots from their match.
Jackson
they would never share the full match
in a way in his interview. Yeah, he kind of said something along the lines in a different context, but I understand what you're saying, basically, that who your audience is. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't play to the camera. A lot of people don't do stuff like that. But to get back into more like the character-based stuff, I still meant every word that I said at the end with that speech. And I know he went and messed it all up because that's just the type of good guy he is. He just can't see past his own like clarity and his own vision of what here. What's that quote he always spouts out about? He made merch no one bought. That it's like
well, you have to pay for it if you want to book him. You have to pay for his flight. You have to pay for his hotel. You have to.
I'm talking about it's like the perspective of a hero.
Yeah,
is his own
I think
vision
somebody
like
mentioned in here. I think ADT mentioned actually that word perspective. He mentioned that.
Yeah, and he has his own way of going about things, and quite literally nobody else on the face of the planet besides him will agree with him. But that's something for the future to hold. That's something that I was perfectly fine, honestly, letting the ROEW championship go away. And I know that was one of my big goals for the year was to win the ROEW championship. But now that he's essentially gone back on his word, because he hugged me. He hugged me at the end of the match, and that's the most character development we've gotten out of him since ROEW came back.
You don't count, though, the apology for Jason Storm's mother?
You are a funny man. You are a funny man, Rev.
No, okay. Oh, I'm just saying, they're best friends.
Yeah, I would trust Casey Anthony with my kids more than that apology.
I'm gonna say no comment on that. I'm gonna say on that.
Yeah, I feel like most of the audience isn't gonna get that one either. But no, he went back essentially on his word after that hug, and I hope. Because he's obviously still in the comments because someone's talking.
I'm gonna read the comments off. I'm gonna read those comments off in a second. I wanted to let you kind of speak about the match from your lenses.
No, he doesn't understand that now that he's like kind of awakened the beast again, and he didn't want to just let it bury. He didn't want to just let it go. I hope he knows that I'm not done chasing the championship. I'm not done with the story. That was the end of a chapter. And not the book, thanks to his actions.
All right, let me ask you a question on this. And I don't know how you'd feel on this. You obviously wrestle this extremely intensive match. It's a match, again, as I said, I don't know if I've seen you wrestle this kind of match, at least certainly in a while. It was certainly, a taxing match. It was a long match. There was moments in the match that it took you got it back into the ring. There was outside elements to it, certainly submission-based, technical moves. But, prior to this, it was literally, I think about 11 days prior, actually, total estimate, 11 days prior, you wrestle this very physical match that we spoke about at the beginning against Eric Mason. You deal with Mason Express. You deal with all that brutality from Eric Mason. I know Eric Mason, bro. I've had him on my platform. Is it fair for me to say that a lot was taken out of you from the Mason match? In that going into the black match, it wasn't 100% jacked up. I know you're never going to say that, I wasn't at my 100%. You're never going to say, I was really not wrestling on full strength. I know you're not going to make excuses, but, for those that have watched you recently, 11 days prior to this, you were in a match that was one of the most brutal and physical matches you've maybe wrestled in your entire career with Eric Mason, where it basically took you like every single ounce of strength you had to get that Delta driver in there, get that, Uranagi in there. And then you wrestle this match with CJ, a totally different match. And I have to ask you, did the Mason match contribute as to why you had to eventually tap out and submit where CJ retained that championship that you wanted so badly here for the past year?
I mean, that's a very fair point, Reverend. I didn't even consider that as an option, to be honest. Because I do forget that like I wrestle so much, and there's just
some people might know I watch wrestling so much at this point. People ask me these days, "Well, what is your hobbies?" I'm like, "Well, I watch wrestling. I mean,
Yeah, no, you're a wrestling encyclopedia. The fact you're able to spit off so much knowledge about like current events, it is just
Fletch
like,
actually asked me off the air. He's like, he's like, what did you think of this person? I'm like, he's like, you probably watched him. I'm like, yeah, I've actually watched him. Mr. Phillips, the owner of DBW, asked me sometimes the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I do watch it. I do watch. So yeah, but go ahead.
No,
What's your thoughts on that?
no, but to get back to that point, there probably is an underlying like certainty of that, because like I'm probably not going to admit it, because I'd like to admit that I'm always at 100% going into a match. But the match with Eric Mason did take a lot out of me. There are like very, very few people that have been able to, because I've been lifted up before and I've been slammed before. That man spun me around. Like,
no, Mason. Listen, Mason's a different. He's an animal, literally. He's a farmer, by the way. Yeah, I'm sure you knew that. He's actually a farmer, Mason. So you have to remember, Mason is different. He's a different animal, figuratively and literally, because that's what he does. He grew up on a farm. I mean,
Yeah, no, he is a different breed, and the fact that he was able to do all that stuff, like hurts me, and I'm not gonna like admit it, because I'm not the type of guy to like walk out and say that this is the reason that I lost or that's the reason I lost. I would leave that a lot up to like pinfall, but I physically tapped out to CJ Black with his Fujiwara, and as much as I hate to like actually say that out loud and admit that on a podcast, when for ages I was advertising this to be the best backyard wrestling match ever, and this was supposed to be a fairy tale ending. He was the better man that night. And as much as I'd like to admit that, like, it pains me to say that good guy beat me. He can have his like credence, but going forward, understand that this isn't over. It's far from over. And I was willing to let it ride out, willing to let it die, but the fact that he did that, because it's almost poetry, because I went back and like watched it, because wow, believe it or not, wrestlers watch their own stuff. The very beginning of the video, he did basically what he did at the end of the video, and it was almost like poetic in a weird, sick, twisted way that I should have seen it coming. I shouldn't have said what I said. You know what I mean? But
you regret that?
A little bit. I mean, I almost looked past his character. I almost seen the person behind that, and I wish things were different. I wish.
Was this the hardest 11 days of your career? Think about it. You were in a match with Mason for the New Age title, very taxing, exhausting match physically, and then you wrestle CJ in a totally opposite match, in a match that, in a way, was kind of like our Macho Man, Randy Savage, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, WrestleMania 3 match here in the backyard. It was kind of basically like our match like that. It was basically, when we're going to look back a long time from now, we're going to remember this match. I mean, so was this the hardest 11 days maybe you've had in your career?
Yeah, it's up there. It's definitely up there, because going into a match with like CJ Black with that type of like mentality of knowing that at any point, right, we've advertised this for weeks and months and whatever, that it's going to be the best backyard wrestling match of all time. And there's literally a point in the match where, despite this, he slides out the ring and he's willing to let a count out happen.
And then that's where you try to outthink. Yeah, you come back in, you try to outthink him. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like at any point during the advertisement and during the hype up to this, he could have ended it that way. And that's why when we got to the end of the match and I tapped out, I saw past everything. I didn't see the character, I saw the performer. And that's where I was blinded. And that encapsulated such a, like, how wrestling works. Because 11 days previously, I was slamming a 300-pound man and winning a championship in a company I never thought I'd win a title in. You know what I mean? And then 11 days later, I'm wrestling a completely different style match against a completely different type of person. I have to bring a completely different type of like training mindset and move set and everything that's involved with that.
You can't prepare for a match against Mason, right? I know Eric Mason, so I can freely answer this question. I don't know how many people that are in this chat right now watched a lot of Eric Mason. I've watched him because we cover the product here in Sportswire, so I can visually see what he's like in the ring. You cannot train or prepare yourself the same way for Mason than you could have for Black. You and Black had basically an emotional roller coaster in terms of where that match went to. You guys were aligned at one point. You obviously said your goodbyes. He certainly did a number on you. You came back. There was certainly a long standing animosity between the two of you. You and Mason, I mean, listen, there's a match that, okay, you knew him. You watched him against Corey Lee. You watched him against
the only thing I knew about Eric Mason is I knew that he was going to hurt me. Like, there was going to be no rhyme or reasons to how he slammed me around.
Listen, Eric Mason is a straight up guy that goes out there. He does his things in the ring, and he's not a talker. CJ, though, you and him had a history and an animosity that people were waiting for this for a long time. People were waiting for you and him, and this was in the yard or in the underground. This was our Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat match. This was the match that people are going to remember when they sit down 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and they look back on matches that are memorable. It's going to be you and him, and this was his moment.
I'd like to think so. That's what the best backyard wrestling match was hopefully trying to live up to. I kind of view this, like, in my personal opinion, I know it's the start of a new year. I know it's an arbitrary thing to say, but I feel like this is the first, like, true leap that ROEW has taken in a long while. I know there have been steps. I know there have been people that have come in and done like crossovers for us. And I know there have been good matches in ROEW, but I feel like that really set the tone for the product that we're trying to like set up for this year. And despite all the things that happened, I'm still going to look back at this match as one of my favorites, if not my favorite match that I've ever done.
Well, I think it's one of the more interesting matches you've wrestled in your career because it's so different than what we've seen you wrestle. It's a match. There was chain wrestling in this match. There was psychology. There was submissions. There was technical. There was just different spots in the match that kind of were character, storyline based. And, I think that's why it got 7 out of 7 stars. And I'll get to comments in a second, but I want to ask you, what did that mean to you to be rated 7 out of 7 stars by Cooper Dragon? What did that mean to you?
Oh, that's one of the most fantastic things I've heard, because the nervousness of like putting out a match like that and claiming that it's the best versus getting actual reception and like receiving the praise that I've gotten. Like a 7 out of 7 is insane considering the amount of like matches that he's like gone and reviewed. And to my knowledge, I could be completely wrong on this, but to my knowledge, that is the first and only backyard/underground wrestling match to get 7 out of 7 in terms of like psychology and moves and all that stuff. And the reason I like my match so much with CJ and the reason I believe the reception is so well is simply because I believe it belongs on TV. I believe it looks.
I said it here on the show. There are people that are quote unquote professional wrestlers, independent wrestlers. I'm not naming people that they couldn't do half of what the two of yous did. To me, I watch a lot of wrestling. I watch underground, backyard. I watch pro. I watch WWE, AEW. I watch what I can, but the point, countless hours of wrestling a day. And I would put my money on you guys to wrestle that match better than, I would say, 50 to 60% of the professional wrestlers I have interviewed, hands down. That's a long list. I'm going to tell you straight up. I don't have no problem saying that. You can quote me on it. I'll put my life on it. That's how confident I am on
See,
that.
And thank you, Reverend. That's such a fantastic thing to hear, man. That's the type of reception that I want from this. This match is what I hope 10 years from now, someone will come back and, like, regardless of what CJ Black does with his wrestling career beyond this, looks back at him and sees that particular match and understands that, like, I know he's had matches before, but this is the one that proves that he can go.
The JX match that he had prior to win the title, I mean, that was almost as good. That was actually probably a better match than anybody had in that entire year. I mean, there was a storyline there with that. And that's the crazy thing, is that you're going off and trying to top that, and you guys did to me and some, and Cooper Dragon agreed. I mean, what do I know, right? I don't know much, but he actually rates these things. He's kind of our Dave Meltzer for what that's worth. I don't know how much people really view Meltzer these days anyway. Apparently, there's a photo out there of Meltzer living like as a hoarder. But the point is that, it was actually rated, and I always go on my eye test. I watch a lot of wrestling. This match, I would recommend. I don't think pros could have done as good a match as this. And I put my life on it. I'll continue to say it. I mean, what you guys did out there, look, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what the characters may say, I think that the both of you guys should be really proud of what you put out there, in the name. So at the end of the day, he's gone out there, and I'll get to the comments in a second. A lot of people really want to talk about this, and I will. But the facts are is that, this was a match that I think very well will stand up to the test of time, and it will be, our, Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat match. I think that's what it's going to be, hands down.
God, I hope so. And I believe you. I believe you. It's one of those things that I'd like to see like progress over the year. Like I want to see like where it stands at the end of the year, because there are times, like, and I have like such a like a profound vision for this. When I go out and I travel to a specific place, even if I do a massive run for all of them, like the WCEF place I traveled to, like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
I wrestled 23 matches in a weekend, and I knew the one match that I was going down there for particularly was going to be the one to get the most views, because I know what are you going to say? I see
quality over quantity, duh.
There we go. And
yeah, into that one.
Yeah, he like said the line, and it was beautiful. It was there was a match I had against Sean Morgan, and
literally, I know Sean Morgan.
Yeah, and out of all the videos that I've done for them, that one got 2,000 views, and it still continues to like rise up to this day. And it's like the same thing with when I went down to like TBW, PWF, and like all of the affiliates.
The Atomics League, yes, I know PWF.
Yeah, the match I had against Jay Wild.
The Prophet Jay Wild, who just wrestled Gage Flair for the world title in the Gold Rush tournament. Yeah.
Yes, I wrestled him in PWF, and I knew with the preparation that I had for that, and the style match that I went for, and how we advertised it and stuff, I knew that out of the matches that I had, because I
think you had that match right after you came on to Sportswire, if I recall correctly. You had that run in the PWF TBW. You had a run there right after you came on here with us. I think it was you had Titan. I think you wrestled Taylor. I think you wrestled in some form.
Yeah, I wrestled everybody in that area. I wrestled Wild, Flair, Titan, Taylor, Max Chaos.
Yep.
I went to the other like Tennessee area place over there. I wrestled Jake Howell, CJ. Yeah. I wrestled all of them. I wrestled everybody in that area that weekend, and I just knew based off of what I was going to do. I know TBW, like regardless of whatever people's opinions might be of them, and they draw views every single.
Oh my god, the TBW. When I mention TBW, it's all of a sudden everybody comes out. Listen, we have Atomic Titan on tomorrow. We're going to definitely get to the comments in a second. I promise this will close the show in a few minutes. But, when I get TBW and when I get Joshua Allen on, when I get the Atomic freaking Titan, now Hardcore King on, people all of a sudden, they come out of the woodworks. Listen, I'll be straight up on this. Say nothing on this. Just be quiet for a second. I'll have pro wrestlers come on. These are the most respected pro wrestlers that'll come on in the UK. I'll get 5 comments, 6 comments for an hour and a half. If I get Joshua Allen, if I get the Atomic freaking Titan, and I guarantee you, I don't know, like you'd be like you tonight, 200 comments, 300 comments, because people want to hear what's on the minds of TBW. It's like, VTW. If I get VTW on, like Aaron Jones, people came out of the woodwork. But especially if I talk TBW, it doesn't matter whether people like them, not like them. People have, opinions on them. If I talk TBW on Sportswire, there will be more comments on TBW shows on Sportswire with the Atomic freaking Titan and Joshua Allen than when I have some of the most respected professional wrestlers in the United States or in the United Kingdom. The facts are the facts. You can check it on my shows. People do. And that's the truth.
Yeah, well, that goes back to like ironically or unironically or like respectfully, disrespectfully. Just any way that they want to like view TBW, like it goes back to the thing where even like good or bad publicity is better than no publicity.
My mother told me that last week. You get publicity, right? It's all good publicity or negative publicity. It's all the same thing. It's publicity. It's good. All right, yeah, I guess. I mean, some people think of it that way, but they certainly have a product that a lot of people watch. You were a part of it, and I'm looking forward to speaking with the Atomic Freaking Titan to respect him tomorrow night. But in the meantime, let me get to comments. I have a lot of comments.
Yeah, I know. They've just been like,
because I was waiting for this. I've been silent the whole show, sitting back and watching this man spew whatever BS popped up in his head. And finally, we get to something that matters, me, the main event as usual. Soldier GP, my friend, the good guy, the reigning world heavyweight champion, Jason Storm. ADT in the comments crying when I put him out. If anyone deserves to kick Delta's ass, it's me. And by the way, he had.
Oh, where's this coming from?
Well, he's got a match coming up with C Money, if I'm not mistaken, right? The loser leaves ROW match. I think that's coming up very soon.
Oh yeah. So Jason Storm's gonna talk all this stuff in the goddamn comments, and then he's gonna lose to C Money, and then I'm never gonna see him again. So it's all worth nothing. Thanks, Jason.
Well, I don't know that outcome. I don't want to say who wins or loses because I want people to actually watch the match when it airs on ROEW's YouTube page at ROEW Backyard Wrestling. Just like I want people to watch your match that took place last Monday against the good guy CJ Black. Perspective creates a hero.
There it is. That's
CJ Black is my best friend. He meant the apology.
Yeah.
That's what I asked. And here is Storm to take the spotlight away from someone. What kind of man does this stuff like that?
It's like so ironic because he did it in his character profile.
ADP, I will put you out again. Shut your goddamn mouth. To be fair, I did bring up that Jason Storm holds a victory over ADT, although ADT will address this next month on the show. Jules wants to say, thank you, Tom, for building an amazing channel where all wrestlers come together and speak their own truth for everyone to hear and interact. I don't know if that's to be true. I certainly appreciate that. I mean, depending on who you may think, but I do appreciate you tuning in there. And thank you so much. And please spread the word and tell everybody else to support all our great wrestlers here on the platform. It's not about me. It's about the People's Show where all wrestling matters. But I'm very humbled by that. Maybe not. Let me come back to more people. I don't want to make this about me so much. I'll come back and I'll come to ROEW in a few months with my boy D'Angelo LaFlame. But how are they boys, by the way? He's in Resurrection. You're in TBW. I'll ask that tomorrow. I'm coming to see a fellow businessman, TJ Black, and I'll shake his hand because he deserves some respect like I do. And I can see him saying that in the way he'll say it tomorrow night.
Yeah, those are like the two slimiest people I've ever seen.
I got one of them on tomorrow, though. Smart move going North Titan. Titan should come west and go toe-to-toe with the real hardcore king, Omen Black. I don't know about that. He actually exceeded.
Oh, he doesn't even know cardinal directions.
Well, I don't know about that.
How would he be even more south? You're in the south, brother. Like,
well, they went. Remember, TBW went Hollywood. Not so fast. TBW's Hollywood now.
To take away my.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing hard from the TBW point. Are you seriously wrestling someone, Cornfred Orgy, as an excuse to take away from my win? Okay, I can play that game. I was coming up, which we talked about, the match with JX, match of the year, and was so tired. Hashtag.
Oh my God, that was like 6 months previous to that.
I think it was like 2.5. But all right, I'll give you that. I'll give you half a loaf. He would have to earn that match, Soldier. You act like I give out freebies around here for just anyone to wrestle me. You're right, CJ. You tell him. So who knows? Honestly, CJ Black, Atomic Titan, and ADT would be a great group to be honest. We would get the respect. We just,
oh my God, dude. This guy ever stopped
the new Bloodline, the new Shield? I mean, what are we getting at? What are we getting at?
This would be the new 3MB.
Oh, stop.
Look, he's already got the outfit for it. So.
Hey, Jinder Mahal was a world champion after that. Drew McIntyre was a world champion twice after that. Well, Heath Slater, okay, that's a mulligan, but he did get a tag run in Impact in WWE, but that's a mulligan. Titan, to make that claim of being a hardcore king, you'd have to be the actual hardcore king. I will ask these questions tomorrow. Thank you, Atomic, for that plug. What was the common denominator in those matches? 2023 match of the year, 2024. His name, the good guy, CJ Black. That's,
Oh, you said it. You didn't have to say it, man.
Ethan, I'm going to go not talk about movies right now. Yeah, I think I agree with you, in a way, CJ. Thank you, though, Ethan. Stay tuned with me tomorrow afternoon with Jam Dog and CCW. Like I said, very technical match, very good storytelling. Everything looked professional. There you go. I said the same things, and the emotions on their face was there. And it was a very good back and forth match.
See, that's the best thing he said all night.
That's what it was. That's what it was. CJ 7-star superstar. That was a good one. And by the way, Cheap Plug, I have the IMF boys coming up here later this week. They're going to be here to promote their show next weekend, New Year's Vengeance. So I'm going to have Soldier and Omen on, and they'll talk about Atomic Titan, I'm sure. And he said 3MB, come on. Yeah. James Taylor is here. Hello. How you doing, James Taylor? Okay, so obviously I've got a lot of that. In the interest of time, I want to ask you before I get to closing thoughts here. I know we spoke a lot about RWW, spoke a lot about XCW, spoke a lot about ADT, VTW, DBW, but what are your goals for 2024?
Oh, easily my goals for 2024. I first and foremost over any championship or company that I can compete for is I want to emulate the style of thing that I tried with CJ Black. And I say tried because of the ending, but we're riding that all 2024 and into the future. Quality over quantity. I'm tired of
I used it in my statement to bring you on. I used it in my statement.
Yeah, I'm tired of essentially adding kind of, and this isn't to disrespect anybody, kind of almost meaningless logos to my list, because there are a few on there that technically if I didn't wrestle for, I would never advertise, because of the quality of the product or anything that I might have been involved in, or just anything that wouldn't have involved me, I wouldn't have advertised. So going into 2024. And with ROEW, or what the future holds for me with XCW, especially defending against Jesse Justice.
Next week encounters episode 6. Yep.
Or potentially an ESW, which you never bring up, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, we don't have to talk about it today. You'll be back on Sportzwire. We don't have to talk about it now.
Yeah, and I'll be on more frequently. I felt like it was just a good enough time. I took a break, so it's there's
no. You listen. We understand. Listen, we understand. Everything happens for a reason. I'm always a believer in that. Everything, you did what you had to do, but we're happy to have you back. What matters is it doesn't matter. The past is over. Can't change the past. What matters most is that you're here with us, and you put on 2 hell of a matches in a span of 11 days with Eric Mason and CJ Black. So to me, whatever happened 5 months ago, 6 months ago, to me, it's a dead issue. I think we move on and we look forward to the future, and the sky is the limit. The best is yet to come. The goals for 2024, the best is yet to come. We're going to see you in XCW for sure in Encounters. We're going to see you in ROEW. I don't know what the future brings in other places like AWL, VTW, but we'll certainly stay tuned. But I want to get to some comments before I get to closing thoughts. I want to actually shout out, in my opinion, for my money, by the way, I want to say this on the record. Let me go on the record to be quoted proudly on this. The nicest guy that I've met in wrestling is this guy, Brandon Castelli. I want to say,
oh my God.
I know he's the mauler. I know he's rock hard. I know he might know some other guy, Sneaky Pete. But the facts are is that this man is the nicest person that I've met in wrestling to date. And he also has a vlog, by the way. Check his vlog out. I hope you go on his vlog one day. The man travels everywhere. He goes to the zoo. He goes out to Cracker Barrel. He goes to all these other places. And he's awesome. His name is Brandon Castelli. He wrestles for VTW, DBW, Amplified Wrestling, Enterprise Wrestling. He's the man. He says all the love. The feeling is mutual.
Oh, no. You know what? Brandon Castelli gets his own section here because he's also one of the nicest people I've met through Backyard. Not even met. I've only ever messaged this man. And randomly, this man checks up on me and just sends me a message, which is more than most people in my life do, even outside of wrestling. And I've never even met him. Friends from
Brandon's
high school or family. He literally messages me.
And that's who he is. Brandon's a guy you could talk to Brandon about anything. Brandon's a really, really well thought of guy. I know he's the mall. I know he's rock hard. I know he might know somebody named Sneaky Pete. But the facts are is that Brandon is a legitimate guy. I know I'm supposed to not be biased, but if there's anybody I root for, I'm rooting for him because this guy, he's just a genuine good. And by the way, if you want to wrestle Mr. Jones, I would advise you to watch his match with Mr. Jones for that Hub City Championship at Merry Mayhem. DBW's YouTube page at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. By the way, their show at Merry Mayhem had just about 1,000 views, and I'm wearing my DBW shirt here. I wanted to
I know I have a reputation for shitting on Backyard Wrestling, but I do watch Backyard Wrestling. I did watch Merry Mayhem.
DBW, though, is underground wrestling. DBW has actually improved a lot. DBW has come This is a company that is the definition of grinding it out. People ask me all the time. I was on a podcast today. People are like, how have you become successful? I'm like, well, I basically grinded. And Brandon, the company he works for, DBW, their company has become so far, and they're going to go even further to where they are now. They even had at their show World where they had a band play, they had a live crowd. So that's a company, I promise you, that if you don't check them out now, you're going to regret it. They're right there. They're right at the doorstep. They're right there at the doorstep. Remember that old acronym right there. In about 3 or 4 months, they're going to be really, really, really big.
Oh, yeah.
And Merry Mayhem had an awesome show. Ace Christian was on the card. Mr. Judgment and Big Tex. Brandon's match with Aaron Jones. A lot of great stuff there. Check it all out. Brandon's awesome. Let me get to, quick question here from you from the Atomic Freaking Ten. It's actually a good one. It's our last one for the night. And I want to actually save it for a good one for our guest tomorrow. How does it feel to have a 7-star match?
7-star match. I can't even quantify how crazy of a 7-star match that is. Like Kenny Omega's never had a 7-star match, and I have. And that man wrestles in the Tokyo Dome every Tuesday.
I know he had 8 championships during COVID. He was the real belt collector.
Yeah, dude. Having a 7-star match is insane, considering the amount of time Copper Dragon has been reviewing the all of these different matches. He reviews New Japan matches and backyard matches, underground, YouTube wrestling, all the other 10,000 acronyms we use to describe this stuff. It's just synonyms. I don't know. Anyways, he just, it's insane. I can't quantify it being a 7-star match. And my only hope for 2024 is that I keep lining them up. I hope even if I have my disagreements with how Aaron Jones runs himself, that me and him put on a phenomenal match, a generational dream match, trademark, that will forever be talked about. You know what I mean? So everywhere that I go, I hope that they all get 7-star matches from now on.
Well, I have no doubt that you will, and I certainly am going to put Mr. Jones on the hot seat, and hopefully he doesn't substitute Chase Wakefield for himself to wrestle you if that happens contractually between XCW, ROEW, and BTW and DBW, certainly the companies that you guys represent. And also, Aaron is actually in the ring this coming weekend for Redemption Championship Wrestling. He's actually wrestling pro wrestling star Corey Edsel, where it's actually a tag team match, and they actually have picked their tag team partners, and they actually don't know who their partners are. And actually, I could tell you off the air who one of those partners might be going up against Mr. Jones. I can't tell it to you on the air, but I can tell it to you off the air. No, it's actually Brandon would probably know. It's a if I tell you who it is, it would be a mic drop. But I'll tell it to you off the air. I can't because I'll get
maybe that's your maybe that's what we give you for Christmas, Reverend. Is you've been putting over these 4 major companies, right? XCW, ROEW, VTW, and DBW. What if we all collaborated and did one giant card?
Well, you know what? Listen, listen. We'll see. Stay tuned. But yes, thank you, Ethan, and I will get to your questions tomorrow. Yes, Jack's a very busy man. He's got a lot on his plate. I don't want to keep him for any longer than it is. It's a very monumental day to have him. Again, one more time. Today, on January 8th, 2024, was Jack Delta Day on all Sportswire radio platforms, recognizing him for being in our sport here in the backyard and underground scene, for everything he has done to make all wrestling matter and also be our Hulk Hogan of our generation here in this sport. We thank you so much. Also, by the way, apparently, there you go. You know what? You did a mic drop, because it looks to me like, you know what? I'll stay on it for one quick minute here, that management said that they would love to do a collaboration with VTW and DBW and ROEW. So apparently, you know what? Inadvertently, who knows? You know what?
Maybe the dominoes just started falling.
You know what? Who knows? Listen, maybe Mr. Fletcher could speak with wink, wink, Mr. Phillips, or
maybe we get an unprecedented best in the yard 6.
You know what? Mr. Phillips is out there. Mr. Daniels, for those who might know who that last name is. I'm sure there's somebody else in ROEW.
I want to comment on this too, Ethan. If since we didn't really get to too many of your things, my DMs are always open on Instagram. You can do the plug now, Tom.
Jack Delta 1999. Yep, Jack Delta 1999. Yes.
So if you have any questions that didn't get answered, you can just message me there. I'll be up for the night.
And any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say, and anything else on your mind before we let you obviously go train for the next match? Obviously, Encounters episode 6 against Jesse. Jesse, make sure you obviously study that film. Obviously kind of recover your body. Obviously, I know a lot you went through there with CJ, but you got to obviously get ready to go back out there at the St. Paul's gym. Next Thursday, there obviously 6 o'clock Eastern time. XC Wrestling 1, XCW Shelbyville on their YouTube and Facebook pages for more information. But obviously, anything else you want to say? And floor is certainly yours, sir.
Number one, cheap plug. Please go watch the best backyard wrestling match of all time, starring Jack Delta and CJ Black on the ROW Backyard Wrestling channel. It is some of the proudest work I've ever done. Secondly, I want to say thank you to everybody that watched. I can't tell you how much it means that I'm an actual person that can hop on a podcast like this and people actually watch it for as long as that they have.
I get messages all the time from people. People said, I watched you on Sportswire. In fact, cheap plug, I actually want to give a big shout out to a guy, Van Hansen from DBW, also Amplified Enterprise Wrestling, and he's coming on my show 2 weeks from now in your chair, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And I was like, yeah, I know you. I watched you in DBW. You don't have to basically say Mr. Bryce and, say, oh, can I come on the show? Of course you can come on. Absolutely. I watch you all the time. I saw your match against Cyrus D at Factor. Yeah, come on the show. I mean, it turned out he was a heavy metal guy. He was into movies. I'm like, yeah, come on down. I mean, join the conversation. So, yeah, listen, I'm like you, man. People message me all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it. I get people that message me, all times of the day. I kid you not.
Yeah, and it's insane. The amount of times I go on my phone and I don't think anything's going to be going on. And I'll have I'll be added to 3 new group chats, or someone's talking to me.
Yeah,
I might in the moment seem annoyed, but deep down, bottom of my heart, I appreciate all of it, all of the support. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair talking to the Reverend. I wouldn't know a single person in this chat if it wasn't for the people over the years supporting me doing this. And thirdly, I want to thank Mr. Tom Bryce for having me on the show, and more importantly, establishing that today is Jack Delta Day, Hall of Famers.
Amen to all that. And Soldier certainly says, he obviously would like the IMF to be, they're interested as well. So maybe.
Oh yeah, I meant it as everybody.
Okay, all right. And the IMF, I want people to check them out. IMF Wrestling 666 on YouTube. Check them out. They have been tremendous, tremendous supporters of Sportswire, and I want to make sure everybody checks us out. I think we're on the air, I think Friday, for sure, coming up to promote New Year's Vengeance. But by the way, big shout out to these guys in a 400-seat venue they're going to. They went from 200 to 400. These guys sold out the venue a few weeks ago, and these guys are going to sell out the next one, and that's why these guys are Hall of Famers. These guys are awesome. Soldier and Omen, great guys off the air, great guys on the air, and of course it's Omen's show, so we got to make sure we give them a shout out. And also Encounters 2, that's where you defeated Eric Mason, the main event. That's on XCW Shelbyville, XC Wrestling 1 on YouTube. You can check all of that out here. And one more time, Jack Delta on Instagram, Jack Delta 1999, TikTok, Jack.Delta7. Go out and support this man. Champ, congratulations on getting 7 out of 7 stars from Copper Dragon. Also, congratulations on winning that New Age title. We'll see you defended coming up next Thursday. And thank you for all that you do for us. And thank you for being the definition of all wrestling matters, quality over quantity, and making sure that this sport is as loved as it is. And thank you for all that you do for us. And thank you for coming back home.
Thank you, Tom. There's no better way to end that. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you, Tom. And I will be on Sportswire way before,
Okay, well, we'll definitely make sure that happens. But ladies and gentlemen, this was the one and only, the XCW New Age champion of the world, the destructive Jack Delta, who will be in action coming up next Thursday. Encounters episode 6 against Jesse Justice. He was also in this ring earlier last Monday in the first match of the year, the best match of the year, in the best match of the backyard against CJ Black for the ROW World Heavyweight Championship. It'll be a match I guarantee you pro wrestlers could never do on their best days. That's why people need to go and watch that match also on YouTube at ROW Backyard Wrestling. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. I'll be back here again tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern time with CCW Carnage Wrestling Hardcore Champion Jam Dog, and then 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, the Atomic freaking Titan, the Hardcore King, will take his place to be respected here and talk about how he won at season finale as they win Hollywood and TBW over the Grim Reaper, Joe Anderson. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire.